Welcome to the Leaders Insights podcast. Today's episode, Capital Allocation in an Uncertain World, How CFOs Are Rethinking the Portfolio. The old annual capital planning cycle is dead, or at least it should be. Why are so many CFOs still using it?
Inertia, mostly. The annual budget cycle is baked into governance rhythms, board calendars, compensation structures. Changing it feels disruptive, even when the environment is screaming for something faster. But the CFOs I talk to who are genuinely outperforming, and we're seeing this clearly in 2026 TSR data, have moved to what I'd call a continuous portfolio stance. They're reallocating capital quarterly, sometimes monthly, based on live signals rather than a plan that was frozen 18 months ago.
Give me a concrete example of what that actually looks like operationally.
Take Siemens. Their industrial software and automation businesses have very different capital velocity requirements. Rather than treating them identically inside one annual envelope, they've built a capital committee that meets every 6 weeks to review threshold decisions, what they internally call portfolio heartbeats. When rate expectations shifted sharply in early 2026, they were already positioned to redirect roughly 800 million euros away from longer cycle infrastructure commitments toward faster returning automation software acquisitions. That's not luck, that's structural agility.
Rates are an interesting pressure point right now. How much is the current rate environment actually changing the math on portfolio decisions?
Substantially. With the cost of capital sitting where it is in mid 2026, projects that cleared a 9% hurdle rate 2 years ago are borderline today. What that does is force much more discipline on duration. You want capital cycling back faster. We're seeing CFOs cut average project payback expectations from 5 years to closer to 3. That changes the entire composition of what gets funded. Longer horizon bets don't disappear, but they get smaller allocations and much harder stage gates.
Geopolitical fragmentation is the other variable everyone mentions but few operationalize. How do you actually price that into capital allocation?
Most companies are still using scenario analysis, which is fine as a starting point, but too slow. The more sophisticated approach, which I've seen at Schneider Electric and a few large U.S. industrials, is building geopolitical exposure as a standing line item in portfolio reviews. Essentially, a concentration risk metric, like you'd have for customer or supplier concentration. McKinsey published data earlier this year flagging that companies with explicit geographic concentration limits in their capital frameworks recovered TSR nearly 40% faster after supply chain disruptions than those without. That's a hard number worth taking seriously.
If a CFO listening to this is still running an annual cycle, what's the one structural change they should make before the end of this year?
Break the link between capital allocation and the budget calendar. Create a standing capital reallocation mechanism, even a small one, 10 to 15% of your discretionary spend, that can move without waiting for the annual cycle to reset. Just that single change forces the organization to build the analytical muscles, the governance habits, the appetite for continuous decision-making. Everything else follows from there.
Practical, structural, and immediately actionable. Thanks for your time. To go further, Leaders Insights offers strategic training programs, diagnostic tools, and an executive self-assessment designed for CMOs, CDOs, CFOs, and leaders aiming for board-level performance. Explore everything at mba-training.com. Thank you for listening to the Leaders Insights podcast. See you tomorrow for another episode.